We are following some breaking news on the John Bolton classified documents investigation. A grand jury is expected to hear evidence today against the former Trump national security advisor. This is another high-profile case targeting one of President Trump's outspoken critics, of course. MSNBC's Ken Dilanian and Lisa Rubin are tracking all of the developments. Ken, what do we know about this grand jury and the potential timeline today?
What we know, Ariel, is that they're meeting this afternoon in federal court in Greenbelt, Maryland, where this case is being considered. And we expect that prosecutors are going to push forward with seeking an indictment of John Bolton, the former national security advisor, former ambassador to the UN. And just to refresh viewers' memories about what this is about, he is suspected of mishandling classified documents. There was enough evidence in this case that the Justice Department convinced two federal judges to grant search warrants. The FBI searched his home and his office. They found some classified documents there. Those were older. Those were not believed to be what generated this case. What generated this case, we are told, was some information that the U.S. intelligence community picked up. They noticed that a foreign government had hacked John Bolton's AOL account, and this was referenced in the affidavit, a heavily redacted affidavit for the search warrant. But I'm told that they discovered some things that made them suspicious that he had been mishandling classified information. This was in the Biden administration. The case did not go forward then, though, in part because of concerns about revealing that access that the U.S. had to that foreign government. The Trump administration had a different calculation. They decided it was okay to reveal that access. They've done that now. They're moving forward with the case, and we expect that the grand jury is considering this case this afternoon, and we'll find out later in the day whether they return an indictment, Ariel.
So, Lisa, given all the facts that Ken just laid out of what they're exploring here, what are the potential charges that Bolton could face, and how serious are they?
First of all, they are very serious charges, and we know what charges they're exploring, Ariel, because in the search warrant applications that Ken was just talking about, the U.S. government has to list what potential violations they're looking into and that they believe they have probable cause to conduct a search in pursuit of. So on those search warrant applications, the United States put in both the District of Maryland and D.C. federal court that they believe John Bolton may have violated two provisions of the Federal Espionage Act that has to do with people who either have lawful possession of or unlawful possession of information that's in the national defense of the United States, information that could, in the hands of a foreign entity, become damaging to the United States. Not necessarily classified, but if you keep that information, transmit that information, or even lose that information, you could be prosecuted under 18 U.S.C. 793. That's the first of the statutes. The second has to do with classified information itself. That's 18 U.S.C. 1924A. That is a very serious offense, as are provisions of the Espionage Act. And I should note, one of the provisions mentioned on these search warrant affidavits with respect to John Bolton, that is one of the charges against President Trump in the Mar-a-Lago documents case.
I was just going to say, it feels like we're seeing more and more of these classified documents cases, whether it was President Trump, President Biden, and now we're talking about John Bolton. Ken, this is not the same office that prosecuted Trump's political foe, Letitia James, or James Comey. What do we know about the prosecutors handling this case? How is it different?
Well, my sources tell me these are highly regarded career prosecutors, some involved in this case, some of them, and this case is not seen in the same bucket as the Comey case and the James case by many career officials inside the Justice Department. Whether you can disagree about whether this case merited moving forward, but there is some evidence here is what they're saying. I should say that John Bolton and his lawyers deny any criminal wrongdoing, and there's a high hurdle here to convict John Bolton on these charges that Lisa outlined. They have to show that he willfully, intentionally mishandled this classified information, not just that he made a mistake, not just that he had documents in his house and he didn't know that they were there. And again, you saw Jack Smith talking about the difference between willfulness and non-willfulness when he compared the Trump case to the Biden case. Remember, Joe Biden also had classified documents in his home and his office. Jack Smith said that the reason they prosecuted Donald Trump was because there was lots of evidence that Donald Trump knew he had these documents, and he even tried to hide them from investigators, and there wasn't that kind of evidence in the Joe Biden case. We'll see if there is that kind of evidence in the John Bolton case.
So as Ken mentioned there's a high bar here to convict Bolton. You got to prove that willfulness. Mm-hmm. What could the possible penalties be, though? What could he be looking at?
he could be looking at a term of multiple years in prison on each of these counts if he is charged with multiples of them. The other thing, Ariel, that I want to point out is at least one of the search warrant affidavits in describing the potential charges against John Bolton described them as a conspiracy to do the things that you could be charged independently for violating. We don't know who might be involved in an alleged conspiracy, but we know that in searching his home and in searching his office, one of the things that investigators were looking for was evidence of who else might be involved in the unlawful retention or transmission of this national defense or classified information. Conspiracy could be yet another count that could be leveled against him, and that in and of itself could level up and ratchet up the potential punishment that John Bolton could be facing if he's charged.
So a very high-stakes deliberation by the grand jury. I know you will keep an eye on it. Ken Delaney and Lisa Rubin, thank you so much for helping us out with that breaking news.